Hey friends, TR back with an update. Well into my self-isolation. Well, I don't know if I want to call it isolation or quarantine. Because, to be honest with you, my life hasn't really changed a whole lot. The jets still fly over and make plenty of noise. The RV park that I winter at, uh, in my general estimation, it seems like the normal snowbird migration has continued. I was talking to one of my neighbors that was over here, couple rigs down, and they're from Canada. And I really didn't know this. I mean, I just knew that Canada had health care, but apparently there are different insurers in Canada, and some of those insurers had required their insured to get home within 10 days. I guess they were all notified somehow, email or whatever. And so a number of my neighbors had to beat feet back to Canada. Now, there's a couple of other of my neighbors that are from Canada. There's a couple over here from Quebec. There's a gentleman right behind me that's from Alberta. And their only restriction is they have to be back before their, well, I guess it's 6 months minus 1 day visa expires. Residents of North America, well, at least Canada and United States, can cross the border and stay. I think it's 6 months and 1 day is the number. Don't quote me on that. You probably know what it is if you're a Canadian or a U.S. citizen that travels across the border. Of course, they have closed the border, but Canadians are being allowed to return to Canada, which I think is a good thing. As far as my situation goes, I'm keeping my social distance as much as possible. I have extended, and I'm going to stay at least 30 more days right here in Tucson. The last time I looked, there were 50 odd cases of the COVID-19 in Tucson, Pima County, and Pima County is pretty big. So I still feel fairly safe here. And if you watch my videos, you know I've been doing some remodeling on the inside, painting walls, just kind of getting things tuned up. And when I was out putting away my supplies, painting supplies, caulking, scrapers, and stuff like that, I happened to look in the one container that I have my painting equipment in, and I did find one N95 mask. I have always kept these, I've always kept these masks on hand as I use them for, if I'm sanding or painting or something like that where I don't want to be breathing the dust or the fumes off of it. And so I have one N95 mask if I have to have one. As far as groceries go, I did finally have to go to Costco last week. I needed to get a prescription filled, and situation is that I had been to Costco about 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks before I went. I think it was last Thursday when I went, but it had been about 3 weeks before that I'd gone in. Before the panic had started to set in and people started hoarding toilet paper and those sorts of things. And so at that time I had bought toilet paper, and I actually had picked up a 2-pack of the isopropyl alcohol that Costco sells because I use it for cleaning surfaces and various other things. And so I just happened to do that at the right time. And so, fortunately I've got TP and those sorts of things. I tried to get my prescription filled at that time, but the insurance company denied it because it hadn't been 90 days since I'd had the prescription filled before, and I just thought that was a little ridiculous, which forced me to go out in public, much to my chagrin. But I'll have to say that, I was pleasantly surprised at Costco. Yes, I did wait outside for about 25 minutes, had a very lovely chat with a truck driver and a lady from Oregon who her and her husband were full-timers, and they were staying here in Tucson as well. Going into Costco, they were limiting the number of people that could go in the door. I think they were letting, I don't know, somebody said 60 at a time go in. Again, I don't know. I wasn't counting. I wasn't paying too much attention. I was too busy chatting. But I was pleasantly surprised when I got into Costco. There were a few shortages. Okay, toilet paper, none. The wet wipes, none. They had lots of water, but they had limited it to one case Also, at the door going in, they had put up a sign that said they weren't going to be taking returns on toilet paper and rice and a lot of these things, and they were kind of wiped out on rice and beans, because you can get those big sacks of rice and beans at Costco. I was critically low on coffee. I gotta have my coffee, okay? But other than that, as I think I'd mentioned in my last video, I'm usually pretty well stocked. I had, I keep a pretty good stock of supplies on hand. I think that's just the general nature of, first, having lived so far from a grocery store, and second, I do a lot of boondocking, and a lot of times I'm out and away from grocery stores. And so I generally stay pretty stocked up, at least on non-perishable items or on stuff you can freeze. So man, I had a pack of I've got one of those Costco packs of salmon. I buy my meat at Costco and I overpack it, so I have a seal a meal, and so I just come back and portion it up into dinner-sized portions, meal-sized portions, I guess I should say, and reseal them and put those in the freezer. So, I was pretty well stocked. There was just a couple things I was low on. I did finally find some dish soap. It wasn't Dawn, and if you follow my channel, you know that I use Dawn and 20 Mule Team Borax laundry conditioner, I guess they call it conditioner. And so I had some of that, but I wasn't able to find any Dawn. The Dawn was totally sold out at Costco. Oh, it's coming up on nap time. But I did get some Palmolive. Stocked up on some snacks, almonds, and those sorts of things, the kind of stuff that I, like to have. And so right now, I think at this particular point in time, other than fresh stuff, like I could use a head of cabbage, some stuff like that, eggs, milk. I'm pretty good till the first of the month on those, so I think it'll be okay. And fortunately, I looked online today, and there's only 50 odd confirmed cases of the coronavirus in Pima County. So I still feel like I'm pretty safe, particularly since I'm pretty well socially isolating myself, keeping my 6-foot distance from people, not going into crowded places, those sorts of things. The things that the CDC is recommending and the public health departments. Which reminds me, I can't say this enough, do not get your information from YouTube about this coronavirus, all right? These people are not experts, and I don't care who it is. I don't even care if it's Dr. Oz or any of those guys, because I got burned by some of Dr. Oz's advice many years ago. At one point, he had said that we should all quit eating sugar and change over to agave sweetener, and I did that. And then I went and had my cholesterol checked, and my triglycerides were like 700. Normal is something like 100. And it freaked me out, and the doctor immediately set me up with an interview with a dietitian, and we hadn't talked 5 minutes, and she asked me what I was using, and I said I'm using the agave, and she says you absolutely have to stop doing that right now. So if you're using that agave sweetener, you might want to think twice about it. That's all I'm going to say about it. I'm not a doctor. I don't understand all of the chemistry behind that, although I am pretty savvy chemistry-wise. So I just strongly encourage you to please get your information from authoritative sources. All right? The CDC's website. A link is in the description below. Your local public county health districts are your best places to go. The shelter-in-place orders and or the orders to isolate yourself or to keep people off the street seem to be increasing. It's a very fluid situation, so I'm not going to mention any of them in specific other than, of course, the big ones, New York, California. Those are some places where, they're quite concerned that the healthcare system's going to get overrun. So be smart and do the right things. So to keep myself entertained, I've gone back to, doing some more writing. I do enjoy writing, but I also have to admit that I've been spending a lot more time in front of the TV. I told you it was getting to be nap time. But I do want to mention something that has just completely changed the way I watch TV. I don't watch off-air TV. Rarely, if ever, do I watch off-air TV. I do like to keep up on the local news, and I found that most most TV stations have some kind of an online presence. But last fall, my DVD player that I have for the front TV here finally gave up the ghost. And so I got an Amazon Fire TV Alexa box, and it has totally changed the way I watch TV. It's amazing. I'm going to link to it below in the description, because if you don't have a smart TV, and I don't, okay, I'm frugal. Some people might say I'm cheap, but I'm not. I'm frugal. If I have a TV that's working perfectly fine, I'm not going to go spend $200 or $300 to get one that has Roku or any of that crap in it. Why? Not when I can spend, $49, or in the case of this Alexa Fire TV, witchy thing. In fact, I just said Alexa, so it's waking up. But I think it was $109. I've had some fun with Alexa, trying to figure out the skills and just playing games with her, asking stupid stuff and getting stupid answers. Or oftentimes she just comes back and says, I don't know how to help with that. I wouldn't waste my money on the Alexa piece of it, to be honest with you, but the Fire Stick TV is definitely worth the money. Let me flip around here real quick and I'll show you the interface. Let me close this curtain, that might help. I guess you can see that. It seems a little dark. Maybe I can lighten it up. But I have really enjoyed this device. They've got hundreds of apps on there, and I've been able to work what I think is a pretty slick deal. Hopefully I don't get shut down because of this. But my dad has DirecTV, and a lot of the stations that I really like to watch, History Channel, TLC. In fact, I've spent a lot of time on TCM, Turner Classic Movies. They've just, all you have to do is have a login through DirecTV, and then they'll authorize you so you can watch those particular channels. There's others, what did I say, History Channel, that kind of stuff. So that's been nice. I think I probably spent more time watching TV in the last 2 weeks than I did in the 2 months prior to that. But I do enjoy my movies, and that just means the stock market closed. The stock market's been rough. Whoa, man, I got lucky and I got out about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. I missed most of the bloodshed. I did get burned a little bit, but not too much, because I was already nervous. I felt like the market was getting a little long in the tooth. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I kind of had gotten into, I'm just going to say it, a couple pissing matches with people online. There's several forums I follow, a couple of Facebook pages, Newmar owners, the older Newmar owners, IRB2, and some places like that. And I saw somebody on one of the Newmar forums say they were headed for Moab. Well, I mentioned in my last update, which would have been last Wednesday, let's see, what is today? Thursday. So a week and a day ago, that the public health district around Moab there, I think it was southeastern or southeast central Utah Health District, had closed down Moab to outside visitors. And that's because there's 1 million visitors a year that roll in through Moab in spring and fall to visit Arches and Canyonlands and Dead Horse and all of those beautiful national parks. Well, now they're having to close some of the national parks. Yosemite's been closed. I understand that Yellowstone has some pretty strict restrictions on it. Besides, to be honest with you, it's a little early to be visiting Yellowstone unless you like snow and cold. I have plans to head up to Saguaro National Park, which is about 20 minutes from where I winter, and do a little walk around just to kind of get out and get some fresh air. But overall, I'm kind of just sheltering in place, staying home, trying to keep busy. I've been tying flies. I finally broke down and bought a water softener, something I've been going to do for a while, but my budget finally permitted it. I've allowed myself a certain amount of money every year to make improvements on the RV, and so I've got time. I'm going to be here another month, and so I have several projects that I'm going to be working on outside. And so, of course, RV how-to videos will be coming for those here over the next 4 to 6 weeks. Coming up on my next update, I'm going to have a special guest joining me, somebody with a YouTube channel that I really like and have been interacting with online and exchanging emails with for nigh on probably 2 years now. But you'll have to wait and see who it is. He's here now. We're waiting for a decent day. It's kind of overcast today, so not very conducive to filming outside. He's working on his stuff, and I'm working on mine. But we do have plans to head out to probably up to Saguaro National Park West tomorrow or Saturday, depending upon the weather and conditions, and getting some footage together and doing a collab. So I invite you to stick around for that. I just mentioned a minute ago that I'd gotten into some pissing matches with some people on some of the forums I follow online and some of the Facebook pages. And I just sent them the link. I thought, well, okay, if you're driving to Moab, I might be able to save you some miles because there's not going to be any place to stay. There's a 3-county area around Moab that they've shut down. Well, of course, somebody came back and said, oh, that's nonsense, and I posted the link. And then the pissing match started in that they're not closing all public lands. Now, in my last video, I didn't say they were closing all public lands. I said they'd close some of the public lands around Moab. But that's neither here nor there. Here's my thought process on it. Yes, I could go south of Moab. You can go down towards Bluff, Utah, down around Valley of the Gods, maybe over towards Monument Valley, and those sorts of things. But here's the situation. I know that country extremely well. I've been going through there for 30 years. And you get down towards Monticello, which is about 60 miles south of Moab on US 191. And that's the only grocery store for 100 miles in any direction. Well, almost 100 miles. And that grocery store is going to get a lot of pressure. The second thing that was concerning to me is that if I need medical care, what happens if I do get this virus? I'm out there in the middle of nowhere. I think Moab probably, it's a tiny town. They're not going to have a lot of hospital beds. They're not going to have a lot of health care. And so I felt it made better sense for me to stay where I have food security, where I know I can go get groceries. Might not be everything I want, but I can get by with what I can get. And if I need to get to a physician, that I can get to a physician. So it made sense for me to stay right here and stay put. I have been in touch with my father out where he lives. Out where he lives, there have been no reported cases in the county he's in. And so, yeah, maybe it does make sense to drive out there. But for right now, I thought I'm just going to shelter in place. My strategy is, if something does change with my father, I'm just going to put the RV in storage. I'm just going to leave it parked right here in Tucson. I'll just get it pickled up for a month or two or however long I might need to be gone and jump in the car and get out there if I need to do that. Right now, my dad and I are talking very regularly and everything is all good there, so I'm not terribly concerned about that. My other concern is that they are closing a number of state campgrounds. Again, I'm not going to go into the list because I am going to put a link in the description below. The best information I found so far is on Campendium. They're keeping a running list that's updated, I think it's every 4 hours, of campground closures and so on and so forth. I've talked to some people, and I've been following some people, or I know some people that have headed home, and they haven't had too much trouble finding places to stay. But it's been my understanding that some of the more popular boondocking locations here in the West are getting quite crowded. I was talking to another friend of mine who is a full-timer, and he spends his winters in Vegas, and he said that the area out around Poverty Flats, up at Lake Powell, some of those more popular boondocking sites are getting very crowded. And so, part of being socially distanced and socially responsible is staying as far away from people as you can. And it just doesn't make sense to me to go in and have to crowd in to a popular boondocking site. The problem is that I'm in a 40-foot Class A motorhome, so I can't go to every boondocking site. You know, I know which ones I can get into. I know some that I can go to that are not popular at all. And if push comes to shove, and it gets too hot here in Tucson and the heat runs me out, and I don't have a compelling reason to go to my dad's, then I have some places I can go. They're going to be isolated well enough and not worry about it. So I do have a strategy that's somewhat formulating. I am formulating a strategy that has multiple layers, because you can't just have one strategy. You can't have one bug out strategy, if you will. If you can't get to location X, you should probably be able to get to location Y or Z. You should probably have 2 or 3 of those locations, particularly if you're a full-timer. I read a stat the other day that estimated there's approximately 1 million full-time RVers. That number seems a little high for me. I mean, but the long and short of it is as they close more campgrounds, particularly full-timers are going to be needing a place to park and stay. They're going to start crowding into these locations, which are typically rural, typically don't have good, solid grocery stores. As I mentioned last week, I don't think we're going to run out of groceries anytime soon. I'm not terribly worried about that. I think the bottleneck is getting them from the distribution center to the grocery store. Here in Arizona, they've enlisted the National Guard to now start hauling supplies, groceries, from distribution centers out to these grocery stores, because that's been the main rub, is not being able to have enough trucks to get the groceries from, say, the Safeway distribution center to the local Safeway stores. And of course, to top it all off, it's allergy season down here in Arizona. We've had quite a wet spring, and man, things are really starting to bloom. Look forward to some footage next week of a little walk I'm going to take out here into the desert near the Tucson Mountain Park. So you'll be able to see some of what the desert looks like right now. And I guess the only other thing on my mind is I've noticed that Amazon delivery times have gone up considerably. There is no 2-day delivery anymore. I have ordered some parts, some supplies that I'm going to need to be working on some of the projects I have planned to go on outside over the next little while. And it's taking 3 to 5, 6 or 7 days in some cases to get the parts in, even though they're coming out of the Phoenix warehouse. There is some concern that this virus can live on packages and those sorts of things for 24 or more hours. Again, I'm not a medical expert. I'm not telling you anything that you shouldn't be going and researching yourself online if you're concerned about that. But my strategy has been, I pick the box up, try to expose myself as little as possible. I'll leave it sit outside under my RV for 24, 48 hours, because I'm not buying anything I need tomorrow. What I'm doing is I'm just stockpiling some supplies. I shouldn't use stockpiling because that seems to have a negative connotation at this point. But what I am doing is getting in the parts and supplies I'm going to need to work on these projects that I kind of have planned over the next 3 to 4 weeks to do to the outside of the RV. So I'm going to wrap this up. I hope everybody's safe, healthy. I hope you have what you need, that you're sheltered in place, that you're practicing good social distancing, that you're keeping yourself and your family safe. And I wish you well. As always, questions or comments, please leave them below. I love getting back to you. I love interacting with you. It's one of the favorite things I do in the mornings. Thumbs up, always appreciated. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Ring the notification icon so you get notified when new content goes up. But as always, it's time to go. Thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Till we get together the next time. Peace.